We still got a lip sync to get through, although I don't know why we're doing it. They're both really going to just go. Hey dolls, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under Season 3, Episode 3. And, well, before we address this week's cliffhanger, well, I need to welcome two new princesses to the Fingerdoo family on Patreon, Gail Lynn DeLashaw and Martin Robbins. Welcome, dolls. I hope to see you at our next live chat. Did I mention that we do 2 live chats a month on Patreon? 'Cause we do. Also, I want to send a big old shout out to Michelle and Martin. They are in Germany now. They were in Denmark. They were in Denmark. Now they're in Germany. I hope you're traveling safe, dolls, and I can't wait till I get my next postcards. Kiwi! All right, now, Jorge, drink me! Oh, thank you. Ooh, a sophisticated lady. I loves me a sophisticated lady. All right, now on with the madness. As advertised, this week's episode started with the lip sync for your life. It was just poor Ivory, Rita, and Ru out of drag. I have to say, both queens must have been feeling a little bit more confident being able to lip sync in their own clothes as opposed to whatever hot mess they had pulled together last week, but to perform to an empty room. Barf. So the queens lip synced to Sophie Ellis Baxter's Murder on the Dance Floor, and I'll admit it, they both surprised me. Mostly because I wasn't expecting much from either of them. Oh! Poor Ivory was animated and engaging, but Rita was fun and danced it out a bit more. I mean, once you've crawled on all fours during a lip sync, it's one, right? I mean, really, all poor Ivory had to do was just more of this. Rita even did a split jump, awkward as it was. Seriously, didn't it look like she just hurt herself? I thought the lip sync was over right then and there. I mean, even Ru thought it looked painful. You could hear her say, ouch. But no, the dancing diva of Hamilton got up immediately and did a death drop that looked even more painful, if you ask me. The way Ru was reacting, I thought she was going to call the whole thing off before somebody got seriously hurt. But it was too late. While Rita was in the throes of her drop of death, Ivory stepped on her hand in a stiletto. Ouch indeed. Speaking of poor Ivory, she ended up the lip sync with one of the most graceful death drops ever. Or did she just faint again? Either way, she looked like fashion roadkill. But was it too little too late? Who knows? Because that's when they officially started the episode. Officially! Cut to the workroom where the rest of the queens were waiting to hear who won the lip sync. Most seemed to think that it was going to be Rita. Hell, even Hollywood was writing a note to poor Ivory asking her if she could borrow one of her wigs. Seeing as she wouldn't be needing it anymore. Oh, God, that was... Gabriella Labucci was the only one who thought that Ivory might survive the lip sync, but that was because Senora Labucci thought poor Ivory had a redemption story to play out. She was wrong. Then Ru showed up to announce that the winner of the rescheduled lip sync was indeed Rita Menu, the dancing diva of Hamilton. Bless. The rest of the queens seemed genuinely pleased to see her. Here's the poor Ivory, though. She didn't last long, but I'm sure it's not the last we'll see of her. I'm so serious. Then it was time for this week's Maxi Challenge. The queens would be acting and improvising their way through a reunion episode of the totally made-up show, The Fake Housewives of Down Under. Some of the queens were worried. As well they should be. The queens would be split into 2 teams of housewives, and because Isis won the last week's challenge and Rita won the lip sync, they would be the team captains. For her team, Isis picked Gabriella Labucci and Hollywood Star, while Rita picked Bumpa Love and, well, much to her chagrin, Floor. Seriously, look at Floor's face. She couldn't even look at Rita. She really didn't want to be on that team. Episode 3 and Floor's being picky. That left Ivana and Ashley, and it was Isis's turn to pick. Well, it took her so long to choose that there was no way it couldn't have been an insult to either of the remaining queens. As far as Isis was concerned, they were equally as bad, but she finally picked what she thought was the lesser of 2 evils, Ivana Drink. Hell, I would have picked Ashley right off the hop. I mean, if anyone could play a self-absorbed, egocentric she-devil, I thought it could be her. Tell me I'm wrong. Right away, the queens got down to casting themselves. Over on Team Isis, well, the queens seemed to cast themselves without incident, but I feel that's mostly down to the fact that Gabriella Labucci didn't put up a fight for any role. She was just happy to be a part of something. Good for her. Over on Team Rita, Miss Nips was wishing that she was on Team Isis because she felt those queens were better suited for this challenge. But Bumpa just saw them as a group of egos singing me, 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 me. Team Rita also seemed to cast themselves fairly easily, although there were a few close calls. Floor and Miss Nips were leaning towards the same part, but with a little coaxing, Floor settled on her second choice. Hell, Floor wasn't worried which part she had. Even though she had never done improv before, she felt she could make it work. Good thing they didn't ask her to remove someone's gallbladder. And then it was on to the set of The Fake Housewives of Down Under with host Reese Nicholson. Team Rita went first. For the most part, the acting scenes went as well as you'd expect. They were mostly there to give us backstory and insight into these queens' characters, so the improv scenes could make more sense. Well, that was the theory anyway. Okay, from what I could understand from Team Isis, Hollywood, aka Alpha, had a line of battery-free personal massagers that Gabriella, aka Beta, was helping her promote, while Ivana, aka Chakra, was hawking a line of non-makeup cosmetics. Non-makeup cosmetics, what is that, brushes? Anyway, they were all on a cruise to get Isis, aka Dame Shazza, to promote their product lines. But things got out of hand, and Shazza the Dame announced that she would be choosing which product line she'll be investing in back on the set of the Fake Housewives reunion. When they returned to the set, Shazza announced that it was Beta who she would be going into business with. And by business, I mean bouncy, sexy, fun times. Shh. Needless to say, there were tons of drama, but not near as much face slapping as I would have liked. The real standouts for me this round were Isis and Gabriella. Gabby's lovable little flunky was adorable, and even though she didn't have a lot of lines, she never stopped acting with that fabulous face of hers. As for Isis, her Dame Shazza had such a highbrow accent you could barely understand a word she was saying. To be fair, neither did she. Seriously, it was hilarious. As for the rest of the team, well, I didn't feel that anyone did a bad job. They all listened to each other and nobody blocked any offers, but I feel they didn't really take any big risks either. Hollywood did well, but was completely overshadowed by Gabriella, and I absolutely loved Ivana's makeup, but I felt her characterization didn't live up to her face. I hear Lady Bunny has the same problem. As for Team Rita, they had their ups and downs too. The ups, Floor's failed pop star Poppy was hilarious. This was another character that I didn't understand a word from, and I was okay with it. I don't know who Floor was channeling, but I was getting a mix of Charo and Senor Wences. Saw that? Saw that. Another up for this team was Miss Nips herself, Ashley. I know, right? Ever since Nipplegate, this queen has been trying to turn her beat around, and I think she may have done it with this challenge. Her pill-popping Gemma was just sloppy enough to be a mess without compromising on her diction. Lord knows I hate it when anyone compromises my diction. As for Bumpa, for someone who'd been recently released from their unfortunate incarceration, she seemed to underplay Gwen. I thought Bumpa missed a lot of opportunities to take her character to the next level. Bless. But at least she wasn't the weakest link. That was Rita. Again. Bless. Rita was so obviously out of her element with this challenge that she just failed on all fronts as far as I was concerned. Her Bertha needed to be way bigger, especially stood next to Flora's Poppy, but as it was, Rita just looked uncomfortable and lost. There was even a moment during the improv scene where she just out and out went blank. She had nothing at all to say and even whispered an apology under her breath. Whispered. We all heard it. Their scene ended with everyone getting a drink thrown in their face, but once again, I feel production missed an opportunity here. There should have been a bunch of drinks on that coffee table for throwing, or at the very least, a pit crew member or two with drinks on trays. Seriously, don't these queens know how to cause a scene? The next day in the workroom, the queens reflected on their performances in the Maxi Challenge. Gabriella Labucci was quietly confident that she'd won. Well, that's what she said more than a couple of times. Rita was no fool. She knew she didn't do well and was hoping against hope that someone on the other team did worse than her. They didn't. Bumpa admitted that she struggled during the improv scenes, but Floor felt that was because Bumpa hadn't created a character for Gwen, which was an excellent point. Speaking of Floor, her team congratulated her on the excellent job she did as Poppy, as they should. Here's the Floor. Well done. Seriously. Ivana was another one the Queens felt didn't do as well as she could have. Her chakra lacked, well, any characterization at all, but Ivana still felt she'd done well enough to avoid being in the bottom. Well, hope springs eternal. And then it was time for the runway. Rue looked tremendous in tie-dye. I'm not quite sure what Michelle Visage was wearing, but she definitely looked good in it. Speaking of looking good, Reese was sporting a formal pussycat bow. Don't tell Ross Matthews. And joining the judges this week, the talented and pierced Adam Lambert. Category is Bad Girls Gone Bad. Her? Rita Menu took the stage first with her ode to Riff Raff from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And if you don't know what the Rocky Horror Picture Show is, we can't be friends. I have to say, this is the best Rita's looked all season. The costume was beautiful, the wig was right, and that mug was beat. Fingerdoo for Rita. Bumpa Love looked extra gorgeous in her ode to Queen of the Damned. Aliyah would have been proud. Fingerdoo for Bumpa. I have to say that this is the best Floor's looked all season too. Clearly, she was channeling Yzma from Disney's The Emperor's New Groove, and beautifully, I might add. The wig, the dress, those purple feathers, and here's another face that's beat for the gods. Fingerdoo for Floor. Seriously. Nips Madison's ode to Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman was stunning. I thought this was a clever recreation of the work that Mary Voigt and Bob Ringwood did on the original costume. My only critique is that, well, I wish the eye holes had been a bit bigger. They seemed to cut into her eyes, as far as I was concerned. Still, Fingerdoo for Ashley. It's too bad that Ivana Drake had the same idea. It's even worse that her Catwoman was nowhere near as good as Ashley's. Now, don't get me wrong. I thought Ivana looked gorgeous. Her figure was beautiful, but either that face mask was too small or the fact that it wasn't actually attached to the rest of the costume really kind of emphasized the fullness of her neck and kind of gave her a man chin. And I don't mean mansion like the kind you find in Beverly Hills. I also felt that Ivana's costume needed some of those original design touches like the stitching or the rips. Something just to break it up. Personally, I would have worn the broken down version of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman when, it was ripped and her hair was poking out of the hood, just to give a more menacing feel. But Ivana didn't, so she gets a figure don't. And then it was all over as far as I'm concerned. Isis Avis Loren stepped onto the catwalk dressed as Lady Gaga's Countess from American Horror Story, and she looked stunning. Even having the blood on her neck done in red rhinestones was breathtaking. Fingerdoo for Isis. In the category of who wore it better was Hollywood and her ode to Aliyah as the Queen of the Damned, which I have to say blew Bumpa's right out of the water. Holly's choice to use red and gold gave her a regal glow. Fingerdoo for Hollywood, seriously. Okay, I am just going to go ahead and say it. Gabriella Labucci is quickly becoming my favorite this season. Her hippie ode to Harley Quinn was excellent. Plus, her knowledge of roller derby turned me on a little. Okay, it turned me on a lot. Fingerdoo for Signora Labucci. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Firstly, Rue told the queens that, well, she would be judging them individually and not in teams. And then kicked things off by announcing that Ashley Madison and Hollywood Star were safe. Ashley seemed shocked, but I bet Holly was a little miffed to not be in the top. Not that you could tell. Miss Star kept it classy as she made her way back to the workroom. As for the rest of the queens, Rita was up first. Although all the judges loved her runway look, none of them were impressed by her performance, improvised or not, in the Maxi Challenge. Rue felt that she was just playing a nice, rich lady. So there's something wrong with being rich? Bumpa Love was another one who the judges enjoyed more on the runway. Ruth thought she looked 25 years younger. Than what? The pyramids? The feathered floor was next to be judged. Michelle loved the reckless abandon that was her Poppy, but wished she'd had some ups and downs with it, while Adam Lambert wanted to know what inspired Floor's characterization. Apparently, it was the same thing that inspired her runway. Isma. Don't tell her the kid. Ivana Drink was up next. Reese said he kept losing her in the scenes, while Michelle was a fan of her figure in her runway outfit, but she agreed with me. It needed something to balance it out. Isis Avis Lorenz's turn under the microscope was next. Although Reese enjoyed Isis in the scenes, he could feel her thinking too much during the improv. Michelle, on the other hand, loved Isis's runway so much she coined a new fashion term. It's the cold shoulder foreskin sleeve. It's going to be huge. Finally, it was Signora Labucci's turn. Adam Lambert was so obsessed with her breastplate that he talked of little else. He knows he can buy one of those off the interwebs, right? Michelle thought that Gabriella was great in the challenge. She was present and contributive, even if she wasn't the star of the scene. In fact, the only critique Michelle had was that she thought Gabriella should rethink her eyebrows. Ruth suggested she start her eyebrows further apart. Personally, I just think they're too dark. But no one asked me. Back in the workroom, as expected, Hollywood was a little miffed that she wasn't in the top. Well, if it had just been down to her runway, she most certainly would have, but she really did come off flat during the challenge, so I'm okay with her being safe. Bumpa was all up in her feels over her critiques as well, until Miss Nips shared her 2 cents worth by telling Bumpa, well, she really didn't do any acting during the challenge. She was just being herself. Hollywood completely agreed, but I think that was down to sour pickles over Bumpa being in the top over her. Bless. Poor Ivana, being in the bottom this whole season so far is really starting to wear her down. She was feeling that she had no problem being herself with the other queens, but as soon as that camera started to roll, well, she shut down. That's not good. I've got 2 words of advice for our Miss Drink. Sparkle, Neely, and sing out, Louise. There. That's all I got. Back on the main stage, it was announced that this week's winner was, in fact, Signora Gabriella Labucci. Here's the Gabby. Chin chin. Seriously. Landing in the bottom, unfortunately, was Cutie Pie, Ivana Drink, and Rita Menu. Because Adam Lambert was this week's special guest judge, the queens were lip-syncing to his cover of Holding Out for a Hero. For the most part, I thought both queens did okay. Neither really wowed me. Ivana looked spectacular, but her costume being just black vinyl made it hard to see what her body was doing. Rita, on the other hand, was giving just as hard as Ivana was, but her costume helped her to stand out more, and, well, she did throw in that jump split. So, when the music died, it was Rita Menu who shantaed, much to her relief, and sadly, it was Ivana Drink who had to sashay away. I'm sorry to see her go so soon, but I said it before, I'll say it again. Ivana's a year or 2 away from greatness. I'm sure we'll see her again when Drag Race Down Under starts its All-Star Series. Can you imagine if they pit her against Anita Wiglet? More drama! I just need to ask one question. When Rita and Ivana were hugging, did Rue meow, or am I just hearing voices like Joan of Arc? How about you? Did you hear the meow? Better yet, were you happy with how everything worked out? No offense to Rita, but if she doesn't get her padded butt out of the bottom, she's gonna be the next queen of sachet. Seriously. I'm also worried about Bumpa. She's not doing badly, but she's definitely being outshone by more than a few of the other queens. And what about Floor? She's obviously one of Rue's favorites, but will that be enough to get her to the finale? Or is it just a matter of time before she lands in the bottom? All we can do is tune into RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under next week to see how it all plays out. And then, when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, before you go, please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. These are the best ways you can help support the Fingerdoo review. But If you want to do a little extra, there's a link just under this screen to leave a tip or do through the YouTube app, and there are links in my description box for tipping through PayPal, joining the Fingerdoo family on Patreon, or getting your own Wilma merch from my Redbubble store. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and miss me! Seriously, Lord. Oh my God, episode 3 and those poor girls are already starting to crack. I don't know. Poor Ivana. It's hard too. I think when you're in a relationship with somebody that does what you do, how do you not compare yourselves? How do you not let that comparison bother you if you're coming up short in the grand scheme of things? I don't know. That's why I'm single. It's the reason I tell people. Seriously.